Welcome to Norse Code, the number one podcast for Minnesota Vikings. I'm your host producer. My name is James Pogoshnik. Thank you guys so much for listening. And at the other end of the tin cannon string, we have our analyst and co-host. You know him from numerous blogs and podcasts around the internet, most notably from the Wide Left Substack. He is Mr. Useful Human, Arif Hassan. Arif, I don't want to talk about the game. How was Thanksgiving? Did you have a great Thanksgiving? Did you have a good weekend?
I had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I didn't have any control over the meat entree they served, and they, of their own volition, without letting anyone know, decided not to do turkey-dated ham. It was beautiful, wonderful, even.
That's fantastic. How are the wife and kids? That's still good?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's the wife that I have, lovely. The kids that I have, doing great. They're getting A's in school.
they're slowly getting older as time requires.
Yeah, they're growing up.
It's been a long time since we did something, and you famously don't like talking about it, but I feel like today is the best episode we could possibly do. A deep dive on the real differences between LD and policy debate. I don't think we've told enough debate stories on the show, so I feel like this is the best one.
James, forgive me if I'm wrong here. It feels like you are avoiding a difficult conversation right now. Far be it from me to, call you out, but that's the notion I'm having.
This is how you survive in a bad marriage: deflection and like trying to just change the topic.
Yeah. I defer to the expert here.
Exactly. As opposed to you with your children that are aging in accordance with how time works. Yes. Well, the Vikings lost. In case you managed to not watch it, which good on you. Actually, if you found a way to avoid it, good on you. Whether it was not paying your cable bill or working, or if you just happened to be in Australia and you were sleeping while it happened, I applaud you. Or if you were sleeping at the game, I applaud you. That picture went viral this weekend of the Vikings fan who was asleep at watching the Seahawks game. He missed at least one bad interception, but he had a cool hat, and it looked like it had been signed. So I'm on his side here. Actually, you're not required to stay awake for the game that you go to, especially if Max Brosmer is your quarterback.
Yeah, that's not a requirement. No one can make you do that.
No, but that game happened, and that's the nicest thing anyone can say about it. So we will talk a little bit about that. We will also discuss a little bit of, the season's basically over. Where are we at after this? And a mailbag as well, with some really excellent research, I must say, by Arif. He has done a lot of work on this one.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I am beginning to regret it. now that I'm out of like the spreadsheet minds, I've realized what I've spent the past hour doing. Yep. And yeah, I'm a changed person, and I don't like looking into the mirror and seeing what's there, I guess is what I'm saying.
I became the change in the world I wanted to see, and it hurt, and I don't like it. I pondered greatness, and instead I discovered the greatness of ponder. So now,
in a very real sense, once you understand what work I did, like that's outstandingly topical, James.
So we're going to do all of that here in just a moment. But before we start, thank you guys so much for listening to Norse Code. If you'd like to help us out financially, there's a couple different ways you can do that. You can go over to patreon.com/NorseCode for $3.50 a month, or a little less for the year subscription. You get access to stuff like the Discord, bonus episodes, all that. Just put an episode out on Thanksgiving. for the bonus stuff, so check that out. You can also go to paypal.me/NorseCode as well for a one-time donation, or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com for any wonderful pieces, for many of the wonderful pieces of Norse Code merchandise. Shirts, baby onesies, all of that are available for sale at norsecode.threadless.com. We are working on the Hell League shirts, I promise you. I should hopefully have something up here in the next couple of days. And just in time for the Norse Code Hell League playoffs, which it's important to note that awful kick during the Monday Night Football game did not count as a miss. Yahoo does not consider it a miss. I am not changing it to be one. It has nothing to do with the fact that I have that kicker on one of my teams, but it does not count as a miss. But it does count as a bit of hilarity that we can all just share and enjoy. Young Wei Ku, what the hell were you thinking?
Hey. That's probably what he was thinking. I probably just vocalized it.
Yeah, actually, it was, run, basically. You've got the ball, run for it. So let's get into the game. Are you sure you don't want to talk about the differences? But like policy debate, we could just sit and have a debate on debate.
We have listeners who we regularly torture, but I
made amazing turkey this weekend, and I feel the need to talk to you about and like try to figure out if there's some like common ground.
Only way out is through, James. We got to talk about the game.
The white meat was better than the dark meat. It was
That's
bizarre.
not true. Sorry,
I
was gonna power through whatever it was, but I couldn't let that one go.
I don't know how I did it. I achieved some sort of magic, and I don't understand. All right, fine. We're going to talk about Max Brosmer. So the season's over. Max Brosmer is not the second coming of Brock Purdy. He's not even the second coming of Bo Nix. This was bad. This was bad. This was... if I'm going to compliment Max Brosmer, and I feel like somebody should, because I keep reading all of these pieces and I keep hearing all about how terribly he played. I want to make one thing perfectly clear. He wasn't sailing balls over the heads of his receivers when they're like 6 feet from him, which is something McCarthy was doing. He could at least complete a screen pass. Now, that said, he wasn't completing many more passes than that. And you could argue that it was one of the worst quarterback performances in Vikings history. You could argue that it shows that Kevin O'Connell doesn't know how to call plays for his quarterbacks this year. You could argue that Justin Jefferson probably belongs on a team where he's going to get more receptions than the defense does. And you'd be accurate in like all of these. Boy, where do you even... I suppose you could start at the most hilarious pick six of the year involving Max Brosmer. And a mistake to even make him do it.
So it sounded like Kevin O'Connell didn't love the play call, which again, it kind of hits different when you understand that like Wes Phillips isn't like doing anything up there. Like he's not calling the play. Kevin O'Connell is calling the plays.
He's getting snacks for people up there. Like he's not actually making calls.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a Kevin O'Connell play call on was it 3rd and 1, right?
Believe that was 4th.
It had to be 4th and 1 because, dude, a sack doesn't mean anything. Like it's like field position, right? But like, dude, throwing the ball away and taking a sack are not meaningfully different here. So
he knew he had JJ open down there somewhere.
He probably wasn't going to hit that guy. he probably wasn't going to hit that guy on an underhand pass. That is probably not making it to Justin Jefferson.
I mean, you've played 500 before. Like, sometimes it's just you toss it up in the air. You do that
again.
NFL,
That
right?
requires you to toss it up in the air. Like, James, I feel like we're kind of missing the key element here, which is that Max Brosmer's pass attempt was only a pass attempt insofar as, like, legally the NFL defines it in their rule book as a pass attempt, right? It's not a fumble.
His hand in such a way.
But yeah, so he's avoiding a sack. Love to see it. He is attempting to stiff arm a defender. Don't love to see that. That's probably not going to work. Like, you're not that guy, right? Like, that's not going to happen. Like, I could see McCarthy doing that. In the past, Carson Wentz has done that. I don't think he's done that in a Vikings uniform, but in the past, that has happened. Max, buddy, you're from the University of New Hampshire. Like, I don't know how to tell you this. You're not that guy. So he's trying to do that. That's not working. And then, then he tries to get rid of the ball as if, like, this. And again, like, we talk about, like, players and situational awareness and how rare it is to find the person who has the capability to kind of understand that the way they're acting changes based off of, like, what down and distance it is. That's actually really difficult to keep as, like, part of your decision matrix when you're acting instinctively, right? Like, I can say that that's abstractly the case, but I can also say it's insanely frustrating to see that fact play out, where this guy who clearly doesn't understand that it is fourth down and that a sack is just not that meaningful shouldn't give someone a run back opportunity by just kind of heaving it nowhere, right? And, like, the thing is, like, you're out of the tackle box, so in order for that to not be intentional grounding, that does have to make it past the line of scrimmage. And I'm not confident that pass was going to do that. So,
Even with the wind helping roll the ball, I don't think that makes it back to the line of scrimmage.
Right. Yeah. So Kevin O'Connell, after the game, said that, you know, they wanted to go for it, which, again, 4th and 1 at the Seattle 4. I actually like the decision to go for it. Like, I think that makes sense. He said he wanted to do it because he was trying to capture the momentum off that turnover with 7. Sure, we don't have to worry too much about, like, momentum. It's a good place to be, and, you know, if you fail, they're at their own 4-yard line, in theory, right? We had struggled to run it up until that point, at the point of attack and things like that. I hate that. I hate that he cares how well they've been running the ball that early in the game, because that doesn't track. Like, how well you've been running the ball after, like, 6 rushing attempts really has no bearing on how well you're going to do on 4th and 1 when you run the ball. So I hate that, right? But okay, we'd struggled to run it up until that point, at the point of attack and things like that. So we wanted to try to see if we could get Max out on the perimeter with a run-pass option, and they ended up having a looping player in his face right away. 4th down, he's trying to make a play and just ends up being obviously catastrophically bad. One of the reasons why you go for it in that moment is even if you don't get it, the field position is going to be on your side with the defense playing really well. Got to call a better play there. He's right. That is why you go for it on 4th down, because if you fail, they're probably going to punt. Like, that's... So, yeah. Then Ben Gessling asked, like, hey, man, so you've been throwing the ball a lot on 3rd or 4th and short. And he cuts Ben Gessling off, which, you know, when he was a little short answering someone's question in London, it kind of didn't make a ton of sense. They were like 2-2 or whatever they were. Not like a ton of reason to be outstandingly frustrated with the season, even though your starting quarterback got hurt, coming off of a win, right, against the Browns, where someone is, like, trying to attempt to, like, that didn't make a ton of sense. Here, I get why he's, like, testy. So he cuts off Ben Gessling about this question. It's like, yeah, Ben, we have run it. I know that's been a well-documented thing, but I just got to call a better play there. Felt like it was the best option for us at the time, but obviously it was not a good option. Hey, man, don't get testy about Ben questioning the play call that you agree was a bad play call. Why are you getting ahead of that? Let him finish the question. And I actually just looked this up on StatHead earlier this morning, right? How often they're running it on 3rd and 4th and short. I'll look it up again because, as we all know, my memory is garbage. It's crazy that I do this for a living with how bad my memory is, I guess, is one thing I wanted to add.
The moment a microphone is in your face, just gone.
Yeah, it's just gone. Talking to friends, having writing whatever it is I'm going to do, getting on a phone to do a radio hit. I'm good, honestly. But as soon as there's a microphone and we're podcasting, my memory just disappears. I think, how kids have
like how JJ McCarthy is great in practice, and then the moment he steps into an actual game, it's just he forgets everything he learned.
I don't love being compared to JJ McCarthy, if I'm being 100% honest.
Would you prefer Max Brosmer?
I think that this is a false dichotomy. We don't have to. The one I was going to go with was, how kids have they study the material, they know everything that's going to be on the test, and then the test happens and they have test anxiety. Now, obviously, I'm not anxious. I'm just saying whatever extremely confidently. That's not the issue. But I am forgetting a bunch of stuff. Okay, I did all the math while I was stalling there. So the Vikings on 3rd and 4th down and 3 yards or fewer to go, the Vikings are dead last in conversion rate, right? This is not a shock to anyone. In passing rate, the Vikings are 4th, right? So the Dallas Cowboys pass at a 77% rate. That's a team that's got, everything together. You kind of want to do what they're doing. That's certainly a model for you. The Denver Broncos passing at a 60% rate. The Detroit Lions passing at a 60% rate. They don't count because they go for it all the time. So I kind of do whatever you want, man. And then the Vikings passing at a 60% rate. So, technically, you're right. You do run the ball, technically, in those situations sometimes, for sure. That's technically something you do. By answering that question with, we do run it, yeah, no, for sure you do. But you run it almost the least. And so I think the question is deserved when you have the lowest 3rd and short or 3rd and 4th and short conversion rate to someone be like, hey, I forget what the stat was this morning on Viking Squad Show. I think Sam said it, but it was you've passed the ball on 3rd and short, 8 times or something like that. It's more than 8 times, but on these 8, on the most recent pass attempts, it's 5 incompletions and 2 interceptions or something, and a sack, something stupid like that. You think you haven't run the ball well recently? And that's why you're not running it? Have you thought about how you've been passing the ball? That's not going outstandingly well for you. Why is it that when you're justifying the way you're calling the play, that you think about how well you've run the ball, but not remotely how well you're passing the ball? That's an insane move. Why? Why are you doing that? So yeah, that's something to kind of keep in mind. The Vikings also seem to have the highest or the second highest sack rate on 3rd and 4th and short. So that's cool. Keep that up, man. You're doing the right thing for sure. The data, don't worry about that. It's spiritually, you're on the right track.
It's been argued by some that Kevin O'Connell is asking both too much or the wrong things from his quarterbacks, from his players, really. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Probably. I think the analogy I made last week about how we're at a track meet, right? And the team that we're cheering for, whether it's USA or Oregon or whatever, right? They just have an outstandingly slow 100-meter runner, right? And you're like, what, man, why is that guy so slow? And you see a bunch of hurdles on his track and no one else's track. And you're like, well, that that can't be right. That's got to be the reason he's slow. And you look at that and you think, yeah, that makes sense that would be a reason that this guy's outstandingly slow. But the problem is, like, if you take all those hurdles away, that guy's still finishing last. The hurdle shouldn't be there for sure. Like, that's bad planning or whatever. We're getting far afield from the analogy. But like, you should not be putting obstacles in this guy's way. But if you got rid of all of them, it's still the worst one. And so, in a sense, like, yeah, we can identify some things that are making things too difficult. I know that people have watched the Kurt Warner videos and the JT O'Sullivan videos, and in those videos, they do have a lot of criticism for the way that the plays are being called. You know, one of the Kurt Warner videos, for example, he talks a lot about how the outlet receiver, you know, your check down, is also chipping to the side of the progression. And so he's just not going to be available on time. And like, yeah, you know, you are making things a little bit more difficult by making that guy a lot less available, for sure. JT O'Sullivan sometimes doesn't like the way that you're running these routes at, like, you know, 15, 16 yards downfield. And the way that the offensive linemen are protecting on some of these routes, which I think that's a quarterback problem, but certainly the offensive line coaching should be brought to question on that. Yeah, and you know, like all of these film breakdowns do give us some idea that there's something at play here from a coaching perspective that is taking one of the worst quarterbacks in the league and just tanking it, making it much worse. So yeah, there is something to it, but if you found the optimal solution, which I want to emphasize is like very difficult. Like, it's not easy. Just call the winning play, right? You're still in a spot where you've got a guy who's just waiting way too long to, maybe not Max Brosmer, but like when it's JJ McCarthy, waiting way too long to get rid of the ball. Max Brosmer is doing, I think, the opposite of what JJ McCarthy is doing. And it's like he's rubber banded, or he hasn't rubber. It's just kind of curled back around to the same problem. So McCarthy will take too long to get off of his first read, and he won't go to, you know, check downs that are contextually appropriate for his read. One good example is if he is reading the right side of the field, and he sees that Justin Jefferson is running a corner route, and it's against cover 2, but the flat defender has moved up to cover him, right? So cover 2, you've got 2 high safeties. You've got 5 underneath in zones. The 2 outside zones are cornerbacks, and they're flat defenders. And they're there to cover short passes, right? And just kind of be generally aware of what's happening underneath. And so if somebody is running like a curl route or something, they're going to take care of that. If someone's running a flat route or a quick out, you know, that's what that cornerback is there for. So he's defending short. But very often, you know, he has to make a decision about whether he's going to defend short if nobody's going to be there, or kind of deepen his drop and cover up for the fact that that safety on top of him may not have the space at the time to get to somebody going to the deep sideline there, and which is what the corner route very often is for, is to attack the gap between the safety and the flat defender. And Jefferson is running that on the right side, right? Let's say the flat defender, he is effectively covering up Jefferson. He's deepening his drop. He's taking away that throw. Obviously, it's Justin Jefferson, but correctly you determine you should move off of that read. And I've seen JJ McCarthy do this 2 or 3 times. He's moved off of that read appropriately. The right thing to do. But instead of going short, like underneath, to the next player on the read on that side of the field, where his feet are already aligned, right? Where he's already looking, where we know someone is open because the conflict defender has chosen, you know, to defend deep instead of short. Instead of taking a guy that you know is going to be open, where you don't have to reset your feet, where you don't have to move your eyes or your head, and you can just throw, he will shift to the other side of the field, often short, right? He's still looking for the check down, but he'll completely move to the other side of the field instead of going to his check down and just waste more time trying to identify where people are and who's open. And his feet aren't aligned, and so he's just off, right? And so that short pass might still be completed, but now you're not getting any yards after the catch because it was an inaccurate throw. Where he doesn't have enough time to read what's going on deep, and so he tries to throw a dagger route, but it turns out the linebacker was lurking, and now it's a pick, right? Like he's like that is not a coaching problem. Like in some sense, you're not teaching him to read progressions correctly, so in some sense, that's a coaching problem. But at some point, right, like a guy is just not coachable enough given where they're at. This is one thing that Luke Braun and I disagree on. It seems like a lot, where Braun will identify a lot of elements to the offensive system that's making things a lot harder for McCarthy or for the offense in general. And some of the things that he's talking about, like, do make sense, right? Like he's talking about, sometimes the play action footwork, like he's mentioned this morning, the play action footwork is really hard to get back to get your feet aligned correctly. And I get it, right? But like we're running out of ways to protect this guy, because if you run a normal 5-step drop back without play action, now the linebackers aren't biting, right? And so now they're complicated and muddying the read. Now you've got more opportunity to run your kind of boutique coverages, right? We've talked a lot about what Brian Flores does. One of the things that he did last year, he's not doing it as much this year, is something called the non-traditional Tampa 2. We had something on Match Quarters that I linked to a little bit ago about NTTs, or non-traditional Tampa 2s, where instead of like 2 high safeties and a middle linebacker dropping deep to cover up the seam between the 2 high safeties, which is the traditional Tampa 2, you're moving players around. So maybe you've got a safety in that linebacker spot. You've got a cornerback in one of the safety spots, and things are moving around, and it's really difficult to see what's going on. You can demolish something like that with an effective play action fake. And if you're not running any play action, because you can still run play action without the footwork problems that Braun is identifying. It's just mostly out of shotgun, and then you have to establish a shotgun running game. And I don't think the Vikings are good necessarily at running out of shotgun. So there's problems, right? But let's say you're taking play action out of the playbook, which the Vikings are doing pretty consistently, actually. They don't run play action all that often, so this is not a huge concern. Now you're muddying the read and complicating things for the quarterback where there's no space available to throw. And so I actually think there should be a little bit more play action. And the footwork stuff is the sacrifice that you're kind of making to make the read easier, because there's 2 problems here. One is that it's taking forever for this guy to make a decision. I'm trying not to swear. Trying to make a decision, right? He's taking forever to make a decision. 2, when he makes a decision, his feet are all screwed up, and so he's opening his shoulder too early. And what did Orlovsky say? He's a linear thrower, like a baseball thrower, which is why his like leg swings out. It doesn't really. The point is, it screws up his mechanics and it screws up his accuracy. And so, do we want him to make the right decision a little bit more often with worse mechanics, or do we want to preserve his mechanics but make it really difficult for him to make the right decision? And I can see why you would pick that second one, but I think the first one is going to produce better results given who the Vikings are and what they do, which is that they are an explosive team, and they're not very good at screen passes, and they're not very good at short game. And like the answer to that could be, well, call more short game, get better at short game. Kind of hard to do that at like week 13 or even week 4, after you spent all of your training camp focusing on a particular type of progression and a particular type of timing with particular chemistry and so on. They did it somewhat effectively for Carson Wentz, and they should go back to some of that a little bit. But I don't think that the play calling in general, like players are open within the timing of the play. in a way that allows the quarterback to get to the appropriate mechanics and throw the ball. That's all I need. Are receivers open? Should quarterbacks be able to identify those open receivers within the progression? Should they be able to do it on time? Okay, that's all I need. And that's what I'm seeing. When I look at the film, when I'm taking a look at the broadcast, that's what I'm seeing. I don't think Kevin O'Connell is incorrectly calling these plays. But I can see why someone would come to that conclusion. I can see why JT O'Sullivan has been kind of talking about this a little bit, why Kurt Warner was talking about this a little bit more. Sure. And I think that they have a lot of smart things to say. They know a lot more about the game than me, but I'm just not seeing it the same way as them. Kevin O'Connell is making things a little bit more difficult for this offense, but this offense, you're putting a weighted vest on the slowest guy in the class, dude. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Did Max Brosmer do anything well?
Yeah, so when I was saying he's doing the opposite, right? So McCarthy takes forever to throw. Brosmer gets rid of the ball super quickly, right? 2.58 seconds in the preseason, pretty fast. 2.7, something like that in this game, much faster than McCarthy. He's like 3.13, right? And that would make us think like, oh, he's making decisions quickly. He's processing. That's the whole deal, right? We had a story in the Star Tribune about Max Brosmer processing really well. We had a story at Purple Insider about him processing well. I believe we had one at The Athletic about him processing well. That's the thing. The Vikings have been selling us on this guy for how quickly he understands what's going on the field, right? What the defense is doing. And I mentioned last week, one of my concerns with the way that we have diagnosed how he did that in the preseason versus how that plays out in the regular season. And my concern was, I don't know if he's actually doing that. I think what he is doing, or what he could possibly be doing, because the preseason presents these challenges from an evaluation standpoint, is reading pre-snap what he thinks the defense is going to do, and then throwing it based off of where he thinks the defenders are going to be based off of that leverage. And in the preseason, that works really well. It looks like anticipation. If you watch the JT O'Sullivan videos, he's got like 5-letter A's, right? A and then A over a different color, then a different color. Anticipation, great. Because our evidence for anticipation is generally just, is he beginning the throwing motion before the receiver is about to get out of his break, right? And he's doing that. He's throwing well before that sometimes. He's made a decision to get rid of the ball. And the concern I brought up was, I think there is a chance he's doing it based off of pre-snap reads and not evaluating what's happening post-snap. And I think that's exactly what happened in this game, where instead of these simple preseason defenses where you're running a bunch of country cover 2, you're running a bunch of basic cover 6, they're rotating, they're simming their pressures. So like a sim pressure is like when you showcase that you're going to pass rush a certain number of players, and then you only rush 4 players, even though it looked like you're rushing 6 or 7, and it's not even the 4 that you would have expected. So that's what a sim pressure is, which is a very confusing thing for a quarterback to diagnose and read. The safeties are rotating. The cornerbacks are becoming safeties. The linebackers are becoming cornerbacks. Like, it's, cats and dogs living together, right? It's hell out there. And if you're expecting country cover 2 or even just invert, right? Invert, which is where corners play the safety position. So on a cover 2, a cornerback would play the deep half, and then a safety might play a quarterback position or something like that. If that's what you're expecting, and then something else happens, and you throw the ball based off of what you thought was going to happen without confirming what's happening, yeah, you're going to throw 4 picks in a game. So he's getting rid of the ball pretty quickly. He's making decisions very quickly. We would consider that, based off of the struggles that we've seen this season, pretty good. And it's not. It's not good, because he is predetermining his throws. in kind of the same way that a lot of us were concerned that McCarthy was doing, except McCarthy was taking 3 seconds to do it, 3.3 seconds even. So that's something that Brosmer was supposed to be good at that did not reveal itself as good. Is he accurate? Kinda. He looked more accurate than McCarthy, right? Like, I guess.
There were moments where balls were not sailing over heads when he went, oh my God.
Yeah, well, except the one pick. But like, yeah.
Like a little bit too far to the right was better than 10 feet over somebody's head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I guess he was more accurate, kind of, not in a meaningful way. His mechanics are better, but like one of the reasons coaches harp on arm strength, again, we talked about this last episode, is that more arm strength gives you more leeway on your mechanics. McCarthy has some awful mechanics, but he has a strong arm, and so he can just kind of power his way through it, which like reduces his guidance and reduces his accuracy and stuff like that. But the fact is that Brosmer just doesn't have a ton of margin for error on these things, and so his mechanics are pretty good, and they're usually producing a reasonably accurate ball. But the ball is taking a little bit of time to get there. He was, despite the fact that he is making decisions too fast, he was late on his throws. He was throwing behind receivers pretty consistently. And part of that is maybe he doesn't, if he's throwing a faster ball, it's not behind the receivers, right? So, yeah, I guess Brosmer is like decent at some skills, but not enough in a way where it has the ability to express itself, right? Like you make a decision reasonably early, but you're only kind of accurate and you don't have a strong arm. It doesn't look like you're making the right decision because nobody is open if the ball takes forever to get there. So is he good at stuff? No, not really, not in any meaningful sense. I want to add that I think some people, and this is not the vast majority of people, but some people have been kind of in a spot where they don't think that this is like really any different, right? That they're like, well, we've seen bad quarterbacks. This is a bad quarterback. Cool. And in some sense, like, yeah, you lose a game, right? But this is the worst production we've seen from a Vikings quarterback in over a decade. Like, probably 2, right? Because, like, from an EPA per dropback standpoint and from an adjusted net yards per attempt standpoint, so 2 different measures, this is the worst quarterback game in a Vikings uniform we've seen since 2006. Like, it's been 20 years since we've seen quarterback play this bad. I pointed out on Blue Sky that this was not just because, some people are like, well, it's an undrafted free agent, right? And it's a rookie undrafted free agent in his first start. It's reasonable that he was going to play poorly, which, some people thought he was the next Brock Purdy. So, maybe it was important for somebody to say he's probably going to play poorly, right? But it's not, because there's a difference between playing like an undrafted rookie in his first start and whatever the hell is that we saw. And I put out a chart where the difference between Max Brosmer and the next worst early start from an undrafted free agent quarterback. So I looked at every undrafted free agent quarterback who within their first 2 years of entering the league played, in one of their first 6 games, right? Or in one of the first 6 starts, right? And I looked at all the EPA per dropback from there. And so I expanded the set actually to give us more quarterbacks so that maybe someone was going to fall behind Brosmer, right? Because maybe your first game was fine, but your third game was awful. And so you expand the set to make it so that if that happened, at least we can compare that one, right? Because it's, not a huge difference between your first game and your third game. So I looked at the first 6 games of undrafted quarterbacks in the first 2 years in the NFL, going back to like 2011, right? I wanted 15 years of data. And the difference between him, so there's like there's 42 of them, and he ranked 42nd. The difference between 41 and 42 was the difference between 41 and 24. Like, there's a vast chasm between the worst undrafted rookie you've ever seen, who happened to be Case Keenum. Props. He was also number 2 on the list. Love him. The worst undrafted quarterback you've seen in the past 15 years, and what we saw in this game. It's just so vastly different that this is not in the reasonable realm of expectation. Max Brosmer was not a highly coveted undrafted free agent. Let me see if I can pull up the consensus board on this one. 2025. No, he was in the top 300. He was ranked 256th. Now, from my understanding, he got 3 offers from teams, and the Vikings were one of them. So he's not a highly coveted undrafted free agent. Obviously, his preseason was a lot better than most undrafted free agent quarterbacks. That's why he made a roster. But he's making like minimum salary, right? He signed an undrafted free agency contract in camp that paid him $10,000. It's a very, very, very minimal salary. He did not get much competition. So among undrafted free agents, he was not particularly coveted. And so this is what we get. Like, you get a bad undrafted free agent who is bad for undrafted free agents based off of like but based off of team signal evaluation, right? And you end up with the worst undrafted free agent game we've seen since 2011. Someone responded to that chart with, well, because Case Keenum is second, overall and second to last, this proves that undrafted free agent rookies are volatile, which is like, yeah, I knew that. And so this chart is meaningless unless you yourself were surprised by that fact. And I think I'm paraphrasing them in a generous way, because I think that actually what they were saying, they were being huge dicks, if I'm being honest. But no, for it to be not just the worst one we've seen in 15 years, but the worst one by several miles is meaningful. It's so meaningful that this is so egregiously bad that it's worse than the Josh Freeman game. It's worse than any game Christian Ponder put together. It's worse than the Joe Webb game against the Packers in the playoffs.
If we're doing comparison, let me throw out a fun tweet that was sent out by none other than Bill Barnwell, who mentioned that the Vikings finished at negative 0.79 EPA play on offense, third worst game of the year behind Raiders, Chiefs, and Bengals, Vikings. For reference, the COVID game where the Broncos didn't have a quarterback and started Kendall Hinton against the Saints was negative 0.8 EPA per play.
Yeah.
Worse than the Kendall Hinton game.
So in my piece covering the game, right, I admit partway through that I'm just like, I'm running out of ways to tell you, to demonstrate that this is one of the worst quarterback performances we've ever seen, ever, period. And here's another way, and here's another way, and here's another way. I forget what set of quarterbacks I was using. I think it was like every like rookie or whatever, everybody's first start. I don't know. 946 quarterbacks. This guy ranked 921st going back to the year 2000. And those are not era adjusted. Like, if you era adjust it, I'm sure it's like 940th or something. Like, Jaren Hall wishes. Like, that's... yeah, There is like, there were people who were pushing back during the game that were like, this is not the worst quarterback play that we've seen this year. Yeah, it is. Yes, it is. Yep, it is. Just because you didn't see a ball fly 10 feet away from the intended receiver, which admittedly is pretty bad, I'll give you that, doesn't mean this isn't the worst quarterback play we've seen all. It is. It 100% is. More picks, more sacks. It did more negative plays than we've ever seen. On 36% or 36 or 37% of dropbacks, the Vikings threw the ball behind the line of scrimmage, usually called screens, occasionally like a flare out to a running back as a check down or something like that. But like 36%, one of the highest we've ever seen in the Vikings uniform, the highest of the Kevin O'Connell era for sure. There's like one other that was even in the 30% range, a Cousins game in 2022. But the highest rate of behind LOS passes we've ever seen in the Kevin O'Connell era, and one of the highest we've seen in the Vikings uniform, going back to like 2016 when we have data on depth of target. And so I found that interesting, right? So I only looked at the throws that actually went past the line of scrimmage, and I looked at the success rate of those throws. And it was 21%, which I struggle to how my brain doesn't compute. Like the idea that you could only have a success rate of 20% on throws like beyond the line. It's I think okay. I'm taking a look now for all the games this season, and it is it's the fifth worst of the year. 2 of them are Shedeur Sanders games. 2 of them are Justin Fields games. 1 is a Cam Ward game. It's the worst I've ever seen a Vikings quarterback do it. I put that in the piece too. For all the data that we have on passes beyond the line of scrimmage in Vikings games, this is the worst we've ever seen in success rate on passes past the line of scrimmage. Through interceptions at a 15% clip on those passes, which is truly astounding. Shockingly, there's at least one other quarterback that's done worse. 2 other quarterbacks this year. Tua Tagovailoa against the Browns, which is one of the worst games we've ever seen, and Geno Smith against the Bears in Week 4. And then Max Brosmer, 3rd in the NFL on interceptions on attempts past the line of scrimmage. Worst rate of first downs generated per throw on throws past the line of scrimmage that we've ever seen this year. And the thing is, like, McCarthy is bad at this. Like, and we still can't beat that. Like, do you get it? Like, do you get that this is so catastrophically bad it like defies our ability to form words about it?
It's like me trying to come up with different ways of saying the word frustrating. Yeah. Eventually you run out and you are left with whatever the feeling is after this game. Now, I want to be perfectly clear. I had 0 expectations. I cackled at the pick 6. I wasn't laughing I wasn't laughing as hard at the rest of the interceptions or the near interceptions or when Justin Jefferson had to become a corner or when Jalen Naylor was doing his best to try to knock a ball out. Like, this wasn't good. And there were a couple of injuries too that make things more difficult and worse for the team. And on top of all of this, Adam Thielen's been granted his release.
He's free.
Dobby is a free elf, and so is Adam Thielen, who's decided this is his final season, and he would like to catch on with a winning team. Don't we all? That
sounds I think optimistic of him.
If it ends up being Carolina, it's going to be hilarious.
That would be extremely funny. But yeah, the Vikings traded like a 4th and a 5th for a 6th and a 7th or something. I don't know. They traded stuff of value to acquire him. And he had like 8 catches or something, like 2 drops at least, right? That's just me going off of memory. I could look that up right now. But like the Vikings made him a healthy scratch, which I saw people like saying like they shouldn't have done that to him. Why not? What are you talking about? Like, he's not good. Stop it. Stop. Like, you don't get legacy roster spots. You only get to suit up 46 on game day, man. Like, we want special teams to be better, right? Well, then we can't waste a roster spot on the guy who's not going to be on special teams. He had 3 drops this year. 3 on 11 catchable passes. He had a 27% drop rate this year. Now, I've mentioned, drops are not entirely on the receiver. Obviously, McCarthy has been rifling the ball at him a little bit too readily, but he also had a drop when Carson Wentz was throwing him the ball. And that's a much more catchable pass. Carson Wentz, I hate to say it, throws a much more catchable ball, and he's still dropping those, right? And he drops a pass twice, right, against Chicago and then against Green Bay, and he's losing contested catches, right? His last 3 contested catch opportunities, he caught 1 of them. Like, he's not doing anything, right? So they make him a healthy scratch, and so he requests to be released so he can find his way onto a winning team or what. I think he says that. Like, I think the statement he puts out, or the statement he wants the Vikings to put out, is to let him go on to a winning team. I think mostly he just wants to like chill out, right? I think he's done, but like he doesn't want it to look like he's retiring mid-season. I think he's done. There's no way, right? Like, do the Patriots need him or something? Like, I don't, and this isn't even like a Patriots like white wide receivers joke. It's just like they are a winning team that might need receivers, but I take a look at the, and it's like, I think Kayshon Boutte and Demario Douglas are doing just fine, actually. I don't think they need you, man.
You could argue that that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could potentially need a couple of receivers, but they're coming back from injury this week. So, like...
Yeah, and Godwin's healthy, right? Ibuka's healthy, and so now you've got, like... Okay, like, what is he going to, like... Are you going to replace Mac Hollins with, like who needs you, dude?
Yeah, well, he wants to be needed by someone, and maybe he'll end up signing up with the Bengals in their attempt to run the table, because they're not mathematically eliminated. They're in the hunt.
They're in the hunt.
I love that phrase. They're in the hunt.
We love to be in the hunt, don't we, folks?
Yeah, that. Before we finish discussing this game and forgetting it forever, except through like regression therapy. So what were the positive performances on either side of the ball that we can talk about for Minnesota?
Boy, I think defensively it's pretty easy to identify some. So Dallas Turner played outstandingly, which is great. I think the past 3 weeks has started to shift the narrative on him a little bit, which is fine. His pressure rate is really high over the past 3 weeks. His sack rate is even higher than the pressure rate would suggest it should be. So that'll probably come back down to earth, but like 4 sacks in 3 games or something like that. Oh, that's fine if that comes back down. Who cares, right? He's been playing really well. He played well in this game. I think that his numbers look better than he played, and that's okay because for a good chunk of the season, his numbers looked worse than he played. And so I don't think there's too much of a risk that I talk up this performance from him too much. I thought that he played really well. Obviously, Jonathan Bernard having 2? Essentially offsides, neutral zone. One of them was an encroachment penalty, which I loved the way he did that because he made it impossible for it to be a free play because he just kept running at the quarterback, which is how probably you should be doing that. Because if they're going to throw the flag, they get a free play or they get to take the penalty, whichever of the two is better. And if you just don't play that game, if you just act like you're going to demolish the quarterback, they have to blow the whistle. It's like a loophole. So that's fine. So that wasn't great. Jonathan Bernard having those 2 penalties, not bueno, right? Not happy with it. But the other stuff was fantastic. And so I think we can take, the positive play from that and project it forward. So that was nice. I thought Eric Wilson had an outstanding game. He had like 9 tackles, 7 of them were stops. Like that's great. Like, I think he had one quote unquote bad tackle, right? Where a tackle, because sometimes, we've mentioned this a couple of times, where the tackle numbers are misleading, right? Because sometimes you've given up a play in coverage and now you're making a tackle. And so you get to mark a tackle in your box score for having done something primarily negative. Or you don't shoot a gap, you wait, and then you get pushed back downfield. And so now you're making a tackle on a run play because you got pushed back and you allowed a 7-yard run. That's not really what happened here. I think he had like 1 or 2 tackles on failed plays and like 7 or 8 tackles on outstanding plays, including on a sack. I thought that he played really, really well. Jalen Redmond, I don't think logged any stats. No, he had 2 tackles. He didn't log like any pressures in the game, if I remember correctly. And I thought he had a really, really great game. Really solid in the run, against the run. A lot of times he's playing outside of the tackle or over the tackle. I think he played like 30 snaps outside the tackle or over the tackle. Like they've really moved him around a lot. And it's worked for him. So like he's not getting pressure like he did at the beginning of the season, but he's really helping the team a lot. So I thought those were like really notable good performances that were pretty fun to watch. Andrew Van Ginkel, I thought, played reasonably well. Did get kind of smoked 1 or 2 times in the running game, so I don't want to like overstate it, but that was nice. Probably the most embarrassing performance goes to Isaiah Rodgers, who was like benched partway through the game because of how much he was getting destroyed as a run defender, and then he gets back into the game, and then he gets knocked out for a play because he got demolished as a run defender. So that's no good. But other than that, I would say probably Hawkinson, I thought, did pretty well. I mean, he ended up with a ton of targets in that game, which like sure, but he played that part well, so you want to give it to him. Jordan Mason, I guess. I would say that the pass blocking like wasn't that bad. I know that sounds like pretty faint praise, but like I think you take a look at like we were worried about Justin School in there, we were worried about Blake Brandel in there, and that's fair. But like aside from like Will Fries, I think this was a pretty good pass protection unit. So I think the offensive line did reasonably well. But run blocking, I would say they weren't so hot. It was just Brian O'Neill and then, as always, Josh Oliver. And so the rushing performance from like Jordan Mason, I thought was really solid. Aaron Jones had the fumble, but he got hurt because they put him out there with like a missing collarbone. He gets it's kind of like a bunch of the Dalvin Cook fumbles from like way back, where like half of them occurred on plays he also got injured on. And so you just kind of like, you don't really want to hold it super against him. That's kind of what happened on his fumble. So I thought Jordan Mason played well on his 6 rushing attempts, and then also just generally getting open and pass protecting and stuff like that. So there were some notably good performances. Unfortunately, like the receivers aren't part of them, because you had a Jordan Addison drop, you had 2 Justin Jefferson contested catch losses. One of them obviously not his fault because he's just playing defense, and the other one not super his fault, right? Because that's I think PFF initially called it a drop, and then they took it from a drop into a contested catch loss. It was thrown behind him. I would say I would call that a drop, a tough drop, but like he is the second highest paid receiver in the NFL, or the highest paid, or something like that, right? Like you gotta bring in some difficult plays too. So Justin Jefferson wasn't doing well. Yeah. um, not great from the receivers, but I thought T.J. Hawkinson played well. I thought the running backs played well. I thought, for the most part, in pass protection, the offensive line played well, and I thought the defense had a bunch of standout players. So good work on the offense for screwing up what could have been like some pretty fun breakdowns of what was happening defensively, because they crushed that Seattle offense. Like they had one drive over 40 yards, and I think that was a field goal drive. They had one touchdown drive, and it was like a 23-yard drive or something like that, maybe 32, something like that. Like, they crushed that offense. And when you get rid of like when win probability is like higher than 95% or lower than 5%, and you only look at those plays across the league, that was one of the best performances defensively all week. So great defensive performance despite Isaiah Rodgers and Javon Hargrave kind of just doing whatever they do. And Byron Murphy actually not having one of those
it was the Josh Freeman game to a more extreme example. Like the defense was good.
Yeah.
But the offense was not there. And it was unfortunate. And this basically ends the season. The Vikings are somehow not mathematically eliminated yet.
If they win out and the Packers lose out, I think it's like 95% they make the playoffs or something. It's funny that doesn't even guarantee it. But if they win out and the Packers lose out, basically they make the playoffs. Sure, whatever you want.
Yeah, whatever. Great. The Vikings have 5 more games. I don't know that they win one more. I would have said about a month ago that Dallas seemed possible. Dallas is apparently hot now. New York,
yeah, sure.
Not betting against that right now. I don't know what the end of the season looks like, but I did ask our listeners to come up with a couple of sentences to help sum up the 2025 campaign, since it's ending. I'm declaring it dead December 2nd of 2025. It's done. So I asked people for what they thought about the season, limited it to 3 sentences, and decided we were going to give the top 3 free shirt. So we've got some great ideas in here. We've got some great stuff in here. Let's start with Why God Why. Nas Reed. In the words of Lord Huron, I had all and then most of you, some and now none of you. Take me back to the night we signed Kirk Cousins. Barbed Wire Enema.
All right.
Which that's my favorite Gwar album, so I don't know why that was mentioned. At first it was bad, and then it got worse. Not bad.
Yeah.
The Abyss Stares Back.
Like it.
Good. Wow. Oh, it's worse. Oh, wow, it's even worse. Butt Puke, which I know what it is. Just the phrasing is.
I mean, like it's always nice to take something that like we all understand and provide like a poetic spin on it, so that it's effectively communicated, but in a way that we hadn't really thought of before. So, Butt Puke, thank you.
Yes. Arif is asking himself and everyone who listens the same question from Galatians 4:16. Carson did nothing wrong. Galatians 4:16. Have I now become your enemy by telling you the truth?
I love that one.
It's taking every ounce of strength not to put that as the show title. That's just good.
That's so good.
Also good. Where else would you rather be?
That's so great.
What
For people who don't know, that's what McCarthy said right before like the game-winning drive against the Bears in Week 1.
Yeah, that's such a great callback. Beatings will continue until morale improves.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a Vikings fan for 52 years. I believe this is the first time I've been a fan of the worst team in the NFL.
I love it. Not technically true, but I think fair. I understand where you're coming from.
I'd love to see a battle between the Titans and the Vikings.
I would. That's crazy that you said that.
Maybe it's a 3-0. Maybe it's a 6-3. I don't know, but it could be interesting. The non-competitive rebuild that precedes the actual rebuild. We did get a couple of haikus in. This one is, this team is awful. We are wasting CJ Ham. Can he play QB? Holy crap, Batman. It's official. I will never see the Vikings win a Super Bowl. Neither will anyone over 30.
Okay, yeah, I dig it.
Yeah. Me extremely hungry. Man, I'm so hungry. I can't wait to eat this delicious burger I bought. Oh no, upon opening it, the burger is made entirely out of crap. Also, now I have cancer. That's rough. Started all right, now in decline. The vibes are bad, and now we whine.
Okay, that sounds like some of the 90s rock albums that I love.
Yeah, that may be in a playlist of yours somewhere.
Yeah, it probably is.
So much beauty exists in the world, and yet we spend our fleeting moments watching J.J. McCarthy, Carson Wentz, and Max Brosmer compete to miss a wide-open Justin Jefferson. Such is the life of a Vikings fan.
I love the beat poetry. This is good.
Hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking maybe 2 yards really is so far.
That is in one of my playlists.
Next up, Amor Fati.
So perfect.
The Minnesota Vikings 2025 season has been a tumultuous journey, marked by a series of setbacks and challenges. After 8 tries for something better, this is what Sumer Brain gave me, so it must be the only correct answer.
Of course, trust Sumer Brain.
Always. You know, it's a shame we're not getting paid by them.
Why would that be? Why would
that be? Who knows? There's a quote from T.S. Eliot's The Hollow Men: shape without form, shade without color, paralyzed force, gesture without motion.
That hits really hard. I really like that a lot.
Yeah. Your favorite band has split with their lead singer, but they're going on tour again to debut a new album with a new frontman. The new tour kicks off, and it's revealed the new album has been written entirely by Sumer Brain. Again, where's the money? Yeah. And the new frontman insists the band pee themselves on stage every show.
James, you know a lot about music. That has to match at least one band out there in existence.
I mean, are you including the end? Because it sounds a lot like when Van Halen decided to have the guy from Extreme be the lead singer. But
there you go.
That's rough. This season was the equivalent of not realizing you have explosive diarrhea until the plane takes off, and then asking your diarrhea to land the plane.
Butt puke strikes again.
Ouch. If the Vikings brought in Nathan Peterman on Saturday, never showed him the playbook, and put him out there on Sunday, they'd still look better on offense than whatever this has been. The Vikings have made Pete Hegseth look competent and stable by comparison.
This is after the revelation of literal war crimes today.
Next Brock Purdy ? The 2025 Minnesota Vikings, a season so bad Arif defended starting Wentz, yet it only continued to get worse.
Yeah, and the worst thing is, and again, I don't want to spend too much time going over every sentence here, but like, I was right, which is the stupidest part of all of this, right? Like, I should have been proven catastrophically, stupidly wrong. And here we are, right? I'll explain even more how stupid it is that I'm right once we get to that part.
Bear down the toilet, losing our Super Bowl, hopeless in Seattle.
Hopeless in Seattle is really good. I assume some like the Star Tribune, that was the headline or something.
I would want to believe. I met a fan from a faraway land who said 2 hapless and underdeveloped rookies stand on the field. Near them on a bench half slumped a shattered wide receiver whose frown tell his play caller's schemes which yet to work. And on the pregame, these words appear. In practice, the ball never touched the ground.
God. Stop talking about practice, Kevin. Stop talking about practice.
A literal 30-car pileup on the highway managed to be the only car crash bigger than the ignoramus loss to the Seahawks as Minnesota Golden Gopher Max Brosmer created game film that will be watched for years as an example of what not to do at quarterback. Let's polish the optimism shotgun for April again.
Yeah, man, were we getting there in April? Were we ready to pull out the optimism shot? Because I remember we obviously had to pull it out during the week 17 before Darnold's subsequent collapses.
Yes.
But I don't think I think we were good on the optimism shotgun since then. So we haven't been able to pull it out.
It was pointed to, but it was never brought out.
Sure, yeah, gestured without motion at.
Yeah. Oops, all Reicherts. JJ is what we thought Darnold would be. The vibes are gone. All power has gone to Will Reichard. This is going to ruin the Thielen reunion tour. We finally have a good kicker, and Jalen Redmond is fun to watch. We also have learned the valuable lesson that it can always get worse. So just remember that when you're watching this asinine excuse for an offense, you are learning and growing as a person.
It's good for your character.
Yeah, suffering is it's good for suffering is good for your art. It's fine. Next, oh my God. Next one, we owe a deep apology to Christian Ponder, Josh Freeman, and Spurgeon Wynn.
Not Spurgeon Wynn, actually. The one quarterback who has performed worse in a Vikings uniform. I believe the only one. Apology retracted, Spurgeon Wynn. Josh Freeman, Christian Ponder, come on down, get your apology communion wafers.
These two seem diametrically opposed. Can't get worse, and it can always get worse and most likely will.
Who wrote in can't get worse? What kind of moron put that in?
Mm-hmm. As the old saying goes, when you have 3 bad quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. Skull Vikings, let's win this game. Skull Vikings, dishonor your name. Go crap your pants, then give up the season. All our eggs in one basket case.
That's good.
Skimbleshanks the Railway Cat wrote in to the tune of my titular song, KOC, the QB coach, the coach of the bad QBs. On the pedestal, these words appear. My name is KOC Mandius, coach of coaches. Look upon my works, ye mighty, and despair. As a Watchmen apologist, I loved that.
That's so good. What do you mean apologist? The Watchmen is just good.
My mistake is I like the movies.
Oh, yeah, I can see why you
apologist. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Pain, beautiful pain. Why McCarthy, Wentz, Brosmer? Maybe next year. Nah. Wentz the best quarterback. Is this supposed to be? No, I don't believe this is actually supposed to be a haiku. But Wentz the best QB Reef's worst nightmare realized. I've become so numb. Vikings make history for all the wrong reasons again. Purple hopes undone. Winter winds drown cheers in cold. Another year lost. Hopeful fan, anxious and apprehensive, watches the season start poorly. The same fan, irrationally optimistic, continues to believe there's a chance. Same effing fan, same effing team. Go basketball and hockey teams.
Wait, are the Wilds good?
Yeah, actually, yes.
Oh, wow. Hooray.
I wouldn't know as well because I stopped chasing whatever streaming service they were on along with the Twins, but the Twins is more of it's this political statement not to watch, right? Right.
Yeah.
This team once made me excited to see Matt Castle play in person on my birthday. 2025 holds no fear for me. Wait, there's how many guys on the injury report? This season is like being in a throuple with frustration and despair. Who's winning this relationship? Not us.
God damn it.
Darkness at 3 a.m., darkness during our games, the Aussie Vikings life.
Wow.
Fantastic. Love that. Wentz wept.
Doing a bunch of Bible references here, specifically with reference to Carson Wentz. That's all right. All right.
We beat Detroit? ? The definition of Vikings fans is cheering for the same team over and over again and expecting different results.
Mm-hmm.
Great expectations, McCarthy bus, Wentz injury, Vikings implode. Sad. We have a coach who supposedly gets the most out of quarterbacks. Now we watch as our quarterbacks set records for ineptitude. Also, 2 QBs on our roster last year led their team to the playoffs.
Oh yeah, I've expanded on the misery cohort concept and I sent it to James. Fun little graphs here.
Oof. The white boys who couldn't. The 2025 Minnesota Vikings quarterback room. James taps the sign. The optimism shotgun is undefeated. All that is solid melts into air. All that is holy is profaned. And man is at last compelled to face with sober senses his real conditions of life and his relations with his kind.
That's incredible, man. That's a reference to like a philosophy book. That's, man, we have I don't know, man. Some of our listeners have like read books and it makes me uncomfortable.
just the concept of any book.
Yeah, what are you doing, man?
Like I don't understand. I don't get it. Not a fan. All right, so we've gone through all. Oh, and we have one more. This for me, this was the this was the one that was on the cusp. This was the honorable mention. Our linemen do not block. They merely bear witness as the quarterback is sacrificed to whatever God rules broken pockets. The horror. The horror. I loved that. Our top 3 winners were surely McCarthyism will work this time. I do love that. Next, it's a quiet evening in the Ponder household. His crimes can never be forgiven, but at long last, they have been forgotten. As he drifts off into peaceful slumber, the long persecuted Christian whispers 3 words into the ether. Thank you, 9. That broke my brain when I read it the first
so
time.
Good.
And finally, for sale, Brosmer jersey, never worn. Never worn. My God. So yeah, thank you to our listeners for helping out with that. We appreciate it. I'll contact the individuals here that have won the shirts. I needed some way to deal with the fact that this season has ended. The fact that this team will not look the same next year. Some fun choices are going to have to be made based on the lack of cap space and all sorts of just ugliness that is brewing that will likely come out either the week after the season ends or 2 weeks before the season ends when it all just comes like apart. This seems like an after Christmas sort of like, hey, Star Tribune, here's all the dirt sort of thing.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun to figure out and find out. As always, we'll break down that whenever that happens to listener. Like our listener base is bringing us like physics references, philosophy references. There was a Marx reference right next to a McCarthyism reference. You don't deserve the content we give you, and yet here we are giving it to you, I guess is what I wanted to say.
We are thankful to be providing it for you. However, you could be doing better. And we accept that. Now, let's get into the mailbag for what is absolutely amazing. Sam asks a fantastic mailbag question. Where does this 14-game stretch rank in terms of all-time bad quarterback play?
All right, so I downloaded all of the EPA per drop back, like successive game by game quarterback performances for like any team that had like a bad season, just to see if I could find any 14 game stretches. So obviously, any 14 game stretches will include going into the previous season or dipping into the next season or whatever. But I wanted to make sure that we're looking at ones that definitely had like some pretty bad individual quarterback seasons. And so I looked at where is it? I looked at the Browns, obviously. I looked at the Bears. I looked at the 49ers for what Alex Smith did in 2005. In the same way, I looked at the Rams for what Jared Goff did in 2016. Obviously, I took a look at this Vikings one. I looked at the Jets. I looked at the Cardinals. I looked at the Raiders. Surprisingly, in my research, I uncovered the Patriots. I didn't realize that like things had gotten that dire in 2024. The Panthers, of course, the Bengals, the Jaguars. And that was it in terms of what I was able to produce. So if you know of a team that has had like a catastrophically bad quarterback performance and it's not here for whatever reason, me looking at the 20 worst individual quarterback seasons by team didn't produce it. So it might have like perfectly, sat in between like two different seasons and just not have appeared. But for what it's worth, this is the best that I could find. So the Vikings are actually not in the top 10 here of worst quarterback 14 game performances. They're pretty close to the top 15, is what I could gather from all of this. You did correctly identify that this is the worst that we have for the Vikings since the year 2000. By the way, I'm only looking at it since the year 2000. So, I'm sure like the Steelers in the early Terry Bradshaw days, I'm sure like the Packers before Brett Favre arrived, like I'm sure like a lot of those would qualify, but I'm only looking at it since the year 2000. So we don't get like the Jim Harbaugh Colts or anything like that. But for that, I uncovered some truly disgusting quarterback seasons. So this is the worst for the Vikings since 2000. Since week 18 of 2024 to week 13 of 2025, the Vikings have had Sam Darnold, J.J. McCarthy, Carson Wentz, and Max Brosmer produce negative 0.21093. Let's go negative 0.21 EPA per drop back. Now, the problem here, and the reason the Vikings aren't in the top five, like the actual reason they're not in the top five, despite this horrendous stretch of quarterbacks that none of you like, is that Carson Wentz played too well. It's not because Sam Darnold played secretly better than you may have remembered against the Lions or the Rams. That's not it, obviously. It's not that J.J. McCarthy had a good game. He didn't. He hasn't had a single good game, actually, at least by EPA per dropback. His best game is negative 0.1 EPA per dropback. That's against the Ravens. Even the winning game against the Bears was actually his fourth best game out of 6 games. No, that's not it. Carson Wentz has played 5 games for the Vikings as a starter. In 4 of them, he has produced positive EPA per play. No other quarterback in this set has done that, and it ruined the whole thing. Carson Wentz played too well for the Vikings to be in the top 15 of worst 14 game stretches since the year 2000 of quarterback play. His only negative was the Chargers game where, he was playing with a pulled pork shoulder, right? Like it was, that was a massacre, like in an almost literal sense, right? But yeah, that's what saves it from being on this top 15. But there are the things that stand out to me are there's a couple of like 2 quarterback series, right? So the Bengals week 1 2000, week 15 2000. That stretch includes both Akili Smith and Scott Mitchell. That's pretty bad. We saw that for Case Keenum and Jared Goff in 2016. We see it for Mark Sanchez and Geno Smith in 2012 and 2013. There's a couple of 2 quarterback stretches here. There is only one quarterback stretch. That's Blaine Gabbert in 2011. You gotta love it. Good work. You just stuck with Blaine Gabbert. You had no one else on the roster that you could turn to. A couple of 3 quarterback seasons, right? You got Tim Couch, Doug Peterson, and Spurgeon Wynn from the Browns, who appear on this list 3 times, by the way. I made sure to include non-overlapping 14-game stretches. So there's no overlapping weeks here. And the Browns appear 3 times. So from week 6 of the 2000 season to week 2 of the 2001 season, Tim Couch, Doug Peterson, a coach, and Spurgeon Wynn, who I just mentioned as someone who actually does not get the apology. That's fun. The Browns also have the worst one at negative 0.48 EPA per dropback, not close to anyone else, including other Browns seasons. So negative 0.48 EPA per dropback is number 1. Number 2 is negative 0.32, a truly astounding 14-game stretch that has never been matched. That was a group that included Derek Anderson, Brady Quinn, Ken Dorsey, and Bruce Gradkowski. Love that. Bruce Gradkowski does appear multiple times here, which, love that. Ken Dorsey also appears multiple times here. Love that. Derek Anderson almost appeared here multiple times, but John Skelton saved him. So the Cardinals actually had a worse stretch from week 12 of 2012 to week 8 of 2013, where it did not include any Derek Anderson games. It was John Skelton, Ryan Lindley, Brian Hoyer, and Carson Palmer. But the one that interests me the most is the second worst 14-game stretch. So the Browns are number 1. They're also number 2. This was the most recent one, actually. Week 15 of the 2024 season to week 12 of the 2025 season. They avoided the Jacoby Brissett stuff. Brissett played way too well for any of this. And so it's instead a quarterback cohort of, this is the most number of quarterbacks in any of these 14-game stretches. Jameis Winston, Deshaun Watson, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, and Shedeur Sanders. Jesus. That is something else, man. Love it.
Truly remarkable. I love the I love the Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah, just Blaine Gabbert. It's like just Zach Jones, Bailey Zappi, Jacoby Brissett, John Skelton, Ryan Lindley, Brian Hoyer, Carson Palmer, Blaine Gabbert. Like,
you have to just push through. You have to push through all the comments, the media. Like, he's playing the worst we've ever. No. The front office has complete faith in Blaine Gabbert. This is who is going to be. This is the star. This is the person. You got to ride these things out. Unbelievable. The Logic Dump asks, for the Black Knights, 'tis but a scratch corner.
Nice.
Every fan loves to loudly proclaim how the offensive line is the most injured and is running with the most rookies backups at each spot. Has the Vikings O-line been the most injured / interrupted, or was it another team? And as a follow-up, what was the most desperate attempt made by a team to fill a spot this year as a starter or during the game?
All right, so I did not have to look this up, which I think is kind of funny. Because I looked it up previously just for an element of my piece, at least one part of it. And so, no, it's not the Vikings. They're the second most. So the most injured is the Chargers offensive line. If you know anything about the Chargers, if you know anything about the history of the Chargers offensive line, this shouldn't surprise you. If you've been following the Chargers remotely at all, this should super not surprise you. They are in hell. There's not really a way to get around it from an offensive line standpoint. So on IR for them, they've got Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, which, holy crap.
You could be argued that Alt was rushed back for the Vikings game, and then that was it.
Yeah. They've had to play Bradley Bozeman. They've had to play Jamari Salyer. They've had to play a guy named Austin Deculus, which, again, what an incredible name. They traded for Trevor Penning. And they've played like Trey Pipkins. So they've played more offensive line combinations than any other NFL team has this year. Number 2 is the Vikings. So, the intuition is correct. This is a lot. It's way more than the NFL average. But number 1, the Los Angeles Chargers. It's like they have like 22 offensive line combinations. The Vikings have 19. That's a pretty sizable gap given the numbers that we're working with. So yeah, it's the Chargers, and they also this is the part I was kind of excited that I didn't have to look up because I hate this guy, and so the fact that he is here is really funny to me. The most desperate offensive line signing is Bobby Hart for the Chargers, the right tackle. He was on the Buffalo Bills practice. He was on the. Actually, I should go. So he was on the Miami Dolphins practice squad in 2021, then the Buffalo Bills practice squad later that year, and then signed to the Tennessee Titans, and then following multiple injuries to their offensive linemen, then cut and signed to the Tennessee Titans practice squad, and then signed to the Bills roster, and then cut and put back on their practice squad, and then signed with the Detroit Lions practice squad in 2023, was cut later, like he was like just like that was it for like 2 weeks. Then he was on the Washington Commanders practice squad. He actually wasn't on a roster in 2023. So I said the Lions practice squad. No, he was on the training camp roster. Got cut after 20 days. Was not on a team in 2023. So after not being in a training camp in 2024. So nowhere in 2023 the whole season, does not get to a training camp in 2024. The Commanders sign him to the practice squad. And then they sign him to a futures contract in 2025, and they cut him during final roster cuts. And then 2 months later, the Chargers sign him to their practice squad and then promote him to the active roster. Now, Bobby Hart is one of the worst offensive linemen I've ever seen. He was on the Bengals offensive line in 2018. That's how I know him. I know he was originally a 7th-round pick for the Giants. But he started a couple of games for the Giants that looked pretty bad. He got injured. I guess the team said he was healthy enough to play, but he refused to play. So they had to put him on injured reserve. Like that's what happened with the Giants. And then they cut him as soon as they could, because that's what happens in that situation. And then the Bengals sign him. And that's when I became like more aware of who this guy is. And you got to remember, the Bengals offensive line historically has just been really, really bad. And so for someone to stand out on that offensive line as being particularly bad, I think means a lot. He was brutally bad for the Bengals offensive line. And the reason I hate him is not because he's bad at football. I would hate way too many players if a guy who's been on rosters for like 7 years was bad enough at football for me to hate. Like if that's the level, like an NFL quality player is, which I mean, I don't think he is, but like obviously a bunch of teams disagree. I would hate way too many. No, he constantly gets into off-field trouble for stuff that's just like, you don't have to do that. You are a hateful idiot. So you remember when Deshaun Jackson did a bunch of anti-Semitic stuff? And like there was some conversation about whether or not to cut him because of it. Yeah. And like the Eagles had a Jewish owner. And it was like, I think it was like about like the ways that that it interacts with the oppression of black people, and they blame Jews, and he had to be like called in on that. So Bobby Hart supported him and then doubled down on that support for him when a bunch of people were like, hey man, I don't know if you know this, but that is actually anti-Semitic. You shouldn't be doing that. And he was like, what's wrong with that? He eventually was forced to delete those posts, right? But like, that's where he was at, right? And then he shared an image on both his Facebook and his Instagram that read, "Stop promoting homosexuality to our children." That ended up getting deleted. He said he was asked about that post, and he said, "Well, I don't mean to offend anybody. I don't actually discriminate. I just know that we all disagree, and I have a platform, and I want to use it in a certain way." And like that's not better. That explanation, actually. That's worse, that you're like, it's important for me to do that. He has shared multiple, sometimes contradictory conspiracy theories about the COVID-19 pandemic. I don't like him, I guess is what I want to say. and he's like a bad person who is bad at football. So like, why are we doing this? Like if he was good at football, you get the logic, right? Like you can disagree, but like you get the logic, right?
You're just Richie Incognito with worse PR.
Yeah, that's it. Like I understand like why you would sell your soul to the devil and like sign Richie Incognito, because at least he's beating up the other team mostly and like bullying your team. But like you get it, right? But like this guy is like posting like, hey, prescription drugs don't work because you have to refill them. That literally a thing that he shared, right? And he claimed that the Amish don't get COVID. What are you talking about? What?
Yeah. So what we're trying to say is that is the most desperate attempt by a team.
Yeah. So I kind of got on a tangent there, which I know rarely happens on the podcast. But
I mean, I was earlier trying to ask. I was trying to get you to just go in on debate. So, I mean, I get it. Raul is asking, whose play calling is worse, Flores on 3rd and long or Kevin O'Connell on 3rd and short?
Oh, yeah, by far Kevin O'Connell on 3rd and short. I get that the 3rd and long stuff is like really frustrating. For sure. Like you don't have to like convince me of that, but that's mostly because we've been, I'm not going to say conditioned, right, to expect success there, because like you should be successful. Like the league average 3rd and long conversion rate is like 30%. So whenever you see it happen, you're really upset. But like the Vikings on 3rd and long, which here is being defined as 7 to 12 yards to go. The Vikings have, sorry, I was looking at the offense. The Vikings have an above average defensive conversion rate, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, they're 7th in the NFL at preventing first downs on 3rd and long. It's fine. You just remember the ones that suck. Like that's it. If you're doing better than 30%, which again is league average, you're doing all right. It's a 22.9% rate of giving up the first down on 3rd and long. It's better than average. It's in line with how good they are as a defense generally. But yeah, I already explained that the Vikings are number 1 by a good margin in worst first down conversion percentage on offense on 3rd and short. This isn't close, actually. It's KOC easily.
Next question is from Leon, who asks, the team seems to have quit. Is that more due to them losing or more due to Carson Wentz infecting the locker room? Okay,
I like where your head is at, and I will not contest it. That's fair.
Next one is from Raul, who asks, now that we're the Cleveland Browns, predict which drastic move at quarterback we make for next year. I'll go with a Mac Jones trade. That's too simple. That's too easy.
So I think it's going to be, I again, like where your head is at. I think that makes sense. The Browns are, like James said, too complicated by far for this to be the only one. So here the Vikings, obviously they retain JJ McCarthy, right? On top of that, they trade for Mac Jones. Correct. I think that your intuition here so far makes sense. But also, they signed Anthony Richardson. No question in my mind is that on the table. Clearly, Kevin O'Connell obviously is in love with Anthony Richardson. No question about that. And God, this guy loves a project. He loves to fix other people's failed quarterbacks. Can't fix his own, but like, hey, man. He loves former Shanahan quarterbacks, right? That's Nick Mullins. That's Sam Darnold. So the Mac Jones stuff absolutely makes sense. I think that you're adding all of that in there. And then I think the real kind of poison pill of it all is that there's going to be another option somewhere in here. It's going to be like the Browns, where you were looking at that quarterback room where they've got Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, Joe Flacco, and for some reason, Kenny Pickett. and they just like kind of had to figure out what that was going to be, and no one was getting any reps, and then they ended up trading Kenny Pickett. I think they signed Joe Flacco. I think that's it. So you get Joe Flacco, Mac Jones, Anthony Richardson, and JJ McCarthy, and you look at that roster and you're like, how would you choose who to get rid of here? This is so stupid.
Training camp is going to be so much fun next year.
Yeah.
Seth asks, when a receiver drops a pass, how much of the blame goes to the quarterback from placement, velocity, timing, and how much goes to the intended receiver? With JJ McCarthy, it seems like a touch issue, but with other quarterbacks, there's still been drops implying JJ, Addison, etc. are at fault. What leads to once sure-handed receivers now to having a case of the dropsies?
This might kind of help. So first of all, the answer to the question is it depends on the specific throw and drop. Every drop has like a different kind of blame percentage assigned to the quarterback and to the receiver. So that's an important element here. Globally, it seems like really bad quarterbacks do tend to have higher drop rates. So in my JJ McCarthy piece from 2 weeks ago now, I pointed out that like some quarterbacks who don't seem to have touch. Like when we talk about how bad they are at quarterback, one of the problems is that they don't have touch. Tend to have higher drop rates when other quarterbacks who play with the same receivers in the same system have low drop rates. And so Anthony Richardson led the league in drop rate last year. I believe he led the league in drop rate last year. Him or the Packers or something. He's up there, right? And Daniel Jones has like a 5% drop rate with essentially the exact same receiver core. Obviously, they sent off that receiver to the Jets, Adonai Mitchell, I think, right? And so it's not like 100% the same, but like clearly there's fewer drops. Like Josh Downs is dropping fewer passes. Alec Pierce is dropping fewer passes. Michael Pittman's dropping fewer passes. All of that is true, right? Sam Darnold had a 5.2% drop rate with essentially an identical receiver core. Now, obviously, Adam Thielen has been dropping more passes, and that's not been helping. But this year, when JJ McCarthy is throwing the ball, the drop rate is 14%. Number one in the NFL. Not close, actually. Easily number one. When anyone else is throwing passes, it's 3%. Like, there's something here, I think. Now, mind you, I disagree with some of the decisions PFF made in their review of the drops after the game, after they double checked their drop numbers. And I think that like one of the Jefferson contested catch losses should be considered a drop, right? Like we're going to disagree on some of these, but globally, it's very clear that there's way fewer drops when it's not JJ McCarthy. That said, it just depends. Braylon Edwards is like the classic example of like he's always open and he's always dropping passes. His drop rate stayed above 9% basically everywhere he went. It was kind of regardless of quarterback. Whereas I believe if Anthony Richardson goes somewhere else, especially if it's not Minnesota, that drop rate is probably going to stay above 8%, probably above 10% even. And so some receivers do drop the ball a lot. They just have bad hands. I think Jalen Naylor's high drop rate over the past, that's primarily a Jalen Naylor issue. Some quarterbacks induce drops a lot because they don't have any touch. I think actually Spencer Rattler is one of those too. But it really depends on the drop and on the receiver and on the quarterback and kind of what is causing the drop. I know a lot of people think like if it hits your hands, it's a drop. And I think statistically, that is how we should treat it. I think that's fine. And I think if you have a high drop rate as a receiver, the presumption should be that's the receiver's fault. But it's always worth interrogating and investigating, right? Whether or not that's happening. But that's like we very often kind of confuse the way that coaches talk to players in order to get them to become better players with an actual understanding of cause and effect and account and so on. Accountability, even for stuff that's not your fault, might lead to skill development, right? Receivers who are taught that they should always catch the ball if it hits their hands will be working on making sure that they maximize their capacity to catch passes. So that's fine. They believe a lie. The lie helps them develop, whatever. But on the outside looking in, we're attempting to figure out what is causing a problem. We don't have to pay attention to the way coaches talk to players to get them to play better. All we have to do is determine the truth. And those two things aren't necessarily the same. And so people get really caught up on, like, it hit him in the hands. And it's like, well, let's talk about what could increase or decrease the likelihood that a receiver catches a pass. If you throw it behind them and it hits him in the hands, the receiver should be thinking, I got to figure out ways to prevent that from happening. I got to catch every one of those passes. Great. The quarterback should also be thinking, I got to figure out ways to make sure that doesn't happen so that it's easier to catch. Now, if both of these things are true, one of them is believing a lie and one of them is believing the truth. And to them, it doesn't matter. But to us, it does, because we're trying to figure out what's happening. So sometimes it's on the receiver. Sometimes it's on the quarterback. Sometimes it might be on a third thing, right? The depth of your target seems to have a big effect on the likelihood of a drop. The deeper the pass, the more likely it is to be a drop, right? And that might be a play calling thing, right? So that's another third thing. But for the most part, I would say, generally speaking, I would call it a receiver issue. But I do think quarterbacks play a role in this.
Next question we have is going to be from Francis Ford Copium. For Arif's fine, prove it already corner. With the lack of talent and depth in the Minnesota quarterback room, should the Vikings sign Kyle Sloter and let him start a game just so when he sucks, we can reply to all his tweets with the stat line?
I love that. I mean, because, like, you know, who cares about what's happening this season? Why not, man?
Nope, it's time. The vibes show it's time. Longing for crippled Carson Wentz asks, is Kevin O'Connell the guy in the hot dog suit?
Yeah, we're trying to figure out who did this corner. In a sense, yeah, because I think that he's guiding the quarterback decisions the Vikings make. And so it is, no matter how it happened, it's his fault, right? Because either he is coaching really poorly, which I'm still open to. I think it's unlikely. Or unlikely to be the primary cause, I should say. So either he's coaching poorly, developing poorly, calling poor plays, or something along the lines of his responsibilities as a coach, right? That might be the problem. Maybe JJ McCarthy would develop really well in a different environment, and he is not providing that environment. Or JJ McCarthy is fundamentally a bad quarterback who cannot be saved, right? We know that that's a possibility, right? If you put me in a Vikings uniform and sign me to be a quarterback tomorrow, there is no amount of coaching or development that would make me good at that. It's just impossible, right? We know that that sometimes you just have bad quarterbacks. You can't coach your way out of that. I know Kevin O'Connell likes to say that, more often bad organizations fail young quarterbacks than young quarterbacks fail bad organizations, fail organizations. And sure, maybe that's true. But that doesn't mean young quarterbacks never fail organizations. And this might be a case. So either, McCarthy is coachable and the problems are coachable and fixable, and Kevin O'Connell's not doing it, in which case that's his fault, or he's not. He's not coachable. It's not fixable. He's always going to be bad, in which case it's his fault for picking this guy and not producing a reasonable camp competition, right? Like, I understand, like, looking at Sam Darnold and looking at Daniel Jones and seeing, like, there was no chance for you to sign him, which actually I don't necessarily know if that's the case with Daniel Jones. I'll talk about that in a second. But there was not really a possibility that you were going to sign Sam Darnold, right? Because no chance you'd reasonably able to offer him a multi-year guaranteed contract while also giving a fair shot to this first-round pick. Now, maybe you think, why do we have to give a fair shot to a first-round pick? We know this guy's good. Look at what the Packers did with Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. They never gave Love a fair shot. They just kept re-signing Aaron Rodgers because he kept playing at an MVP level until it got to the point where even he, playing at an MVP level, was just too obnoxious to deal with. Okay, you do that for 4 years. You sign basically an unknown quarterback to a massive extension, and then you figure out if that's going to work for you later. Fine. I think that that's a pretty reasonable thing to say. But for the most part, that's not the presumption, right? At some point, you want to give this first-round investment a shot, so you can't do a multi-year, multi-guaranteed contract. So you weren't going to be able to do that. But more importantly, you are not going to be able to give Sam Darnold an opportunity to just have the job. Again, you could have just done it, right? But that seems really unlikely. And it seems more likely that Sam Darnold would feel more secure in being the starting quarterback at a place that didn't just draft a first-round pick than a place that did, right? And you can give him all the assurance in the world that you are going to give him the starting job, that he's going to be guaranteed to do it. You can do it with guaranteed money. Look what happened to Kirk Cousins. He was assured that he was the starting quarterback, no question. They gave him a ton of money. A ton of that money was guaranteed. It was over the course of several years. And then they drafted a first-round pick and eventually replaced him with that guy, right? Like, it's just better to sign with an organization that doesn't have that guy. So I don't think you were ever going to get Sam Darnold. Daniel Jones, you could have, I think. Probably not, but you could have. So the Vikings offered him, I think, more money. I think that's the story. Offered him more money than the Colts did. But the Colts said, hey, you know how we feel about Anthony Richardson. This guy benched himself during the season. It will absolutely be a real quarterback competition, and whoever looks better is going to start for us. We don't have any fidelity to this guy. We're essentially a different coaching. Just think of us as a different coaching staff. We hate this guy. So if he's not good, we're not going to play him. We promise that you'll be able to play because we're frankly sick of this guy. And Daniel Jones was like, great, fantastic. I will do that. I will head over there and do that. Whereas if the Vikings said the same thing about J.J. McCarthy to Daniel Jones, they're like, hey, this is a genuine competition. You versus the J.J. McCarthy. And it's an easy competition. Think about it. This guy's been injured all year. Man, we have no idea if he's going to be ready to play. You'll get to play against him in camp, and whoever wins, wins. I don't think he's going to believe that as much as being able to beat out Anthony Richardson, right? So I think you maybe could have, but I think it is still tough. So that's not what I mean. I don't mean that. I mean, Sam Howell, are you effing serious? Are you kidding me? Trade for Kenny Pickett or don't do this. What is this? Like sign Jameis. You know how I feel about Jameis. I think he's a bad person, right? But like, if you're going to do this, and if you're an organization that doesn't care about it, you're an organization that drafted Ed Ingram, it doesn't matter to you, then do it. Like, sign Jameis Winston, trade for Kenny Pickett. Sam Howell is an insane decision. And it sounds like the real choice was Carson Wentz, but without any time with the playbook or time in training camp. Just like after the season, I guess. Or after the season was about to begin. A guy with no time.
They treated the Carson Wentz thing like he was picking up Favre in Mississippi.
Like, giving him that kind of leeway, that kind of treatment to allow him to skip training camp and not install the friggin' offense is insane. So even if, like, we absolve Kevin O'Connell of, like, the evaluation error with J.J. McCarthy, just generally, the confidence it takes to not have any viable guy in the room is Kevin O'Connell's fault. Now, that to me personally doesn't mean he should be fired. But if you think it means he should be fired, I think that makes total sense. That's totally understandable. To me, my question is, if we retain Kevin O'Connell, or actually the question really is, what's the best coaching solution that we can have for next year? That's the question, right? And if it's fire a current guy and find another guy, and if that's the answer, fine, whatever, fire him. But I think that's really, really unlikely that a new head coach is going to be better than Kevin O'Connell. If it's an evaluation error, just don't let him evaluate guys, man. Like, maybe he also evaluated Dobbs and he gets credit for that. Maybe he evaluated Nick Mullins and he gets credit for that. But like, just honestly, just fire Kwesi and get a real GM. Like a GM who, if he's going to be an analytics GM, like, use analytics, like actually look at data instead of just like listening to Ryan Grigson talk about how Ed Ingram's a dancing bear or whatever, right? and bring in an actual evaluative criteria for quarterbacks that maybe Kevin O'Connell has to be comfortable with, but like do it. Like, okay, so the story is being revisited. I was looking at it before the show because Drake May was on TV and just killing it. Oh my God, what a game from him. And I was looking at the stories about the Vikings attempting to trade up to pick number 3. Now, the stories that are being kind of rehashed about this are framed like, wow, the Patriots knew what they had, and they stuck with their guy, and they rejected these huge trades in order to make sure they got Drake May. And that it feels good to say that because he's an MVP candidate right now. But I don't think that's what happened. My understanding, and I'm not reporting with sources, this is me reading other kind of public understandings of what had happened here, not me reporting based on sources. My understanding is that that's not what happened. So the Vikings offer the 2 first-round picks they have in that draft, the one that they used for Dallas Turner, the one they used for J.J. McCarthy, and next year's first-round pick. So 3 first-round picks, holy crap, to trade up to get Drake May. And Kevin O'Connell, my understanding, loves Drake May. Wow, an evaluation positive here. He seems like he nailed this one. So Kevin O'Connell is signing off on acquiring Drake May, I guess, kind of. So it's up to Kwesi to figure out if it's worth the cost to grab him or to stick with another guy Kevin O'Connell loves, J.J. McCarthy. One of the two, right? And the story now is being reported that the Patriots just said, no, absolutely not. We love Drake May. I don't think that's what happened. The Patriots wanted a higher price. They wanted the Vikings to trade more. The Vikings offered 3 first-round picks and I believe a late-round pick swap that allowed the Vikings to move up like in the 5th or 4th round or something like that. So the pick swap would have favored the Vikings. And the Patriots wanted more. Dog, you should have given more. I know that like everyone's criticizing the way that you traded up for stuff or traded down for stuff. They've been criticizing your trades. Your job is not to listen to guys like me. That's insane. That's stupid. Get the good quarterback. Get the good quarterback. That's the job. Get the good quarterback.
You heard it here first. Don't listen to Arif.
Don't listen to me. Get the good quarterback, which is also a thing I'm saying, but still. So like to me, I would say that the accountability mechanism here is to get rid of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and bring in another general manager, but keep Kevin O'Connell and reduce his role in a couple of ways. One, as a talent evaluator. You're never going to eliminate it because the head coach is always going to be involved in that. And then 2, the week-to-week game plan and hopefully also play calling. That's my take on that. So there's a lot of things that he's at fault here. I don't think this necessarily means he has to be fired, but I do think that there is some value in an understanding of employment decisions as holding people accountable and saying, because it's your fault, you've caused this problem, you have to go. That makes sense to me. That's just not the way that I think. So that's how I feel about it. He is the guy in the hot dog suit, but it doesn't mean you gotta. I actually don't know what happens next in the skit, but it doesn't mean you have to.
Everyone's pointing at the hot dog car that he was driving that crashed into the building. Yeah. Delta BC Dad asks, does taking my son to this game count as reckless endangerment of a minor?
Yes.
You did cross the country. So I think that's worth mentioning here.
Yeah. This is well, I know crossing state lines makes it federal, but this crossing international.
Somebody in the Discord said it should involve Interpol. I don't think so, but I'm not.
No, that sounds right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Let's go to Mad Max Brosmer, who asks, for the disappointing wide receiver reunion corner, with the benefit of hindsight, was the Thielen trade a pretty big mistake? They roughly gave up a 4th-round pick, which has a reasonable chance of becoming a cheap depth/backup player that this team badly needs, and got basically no production, even when Addison was suspended. How does the Thielen reunion compare to the Randy Moss reunion in terms of disappointment? Oh, honey.
It's not close. The Moss reunion was a catastrophic disappointment.
The highlight of the Moss one, other than the fact that I think, what did he catch the 500th touchdown?
Yeah,
from Favre
yeah.
or something?
So yeah, I mentioned this on the Viking Squad show today. One of the first highlights we saw was Moss throwing a deep ball to Brett Favre that got called back because it was an illegal formation for Brett Favre to be an eligible receiver. And then one of the stupidest trivia things of all time, Moss is Brett Favre's 500th touchdown.
It was that quick, that brief period of time. It's like when people ask, "Oh, who was the prime minister when Queen Elizabeth died?" And you go, "Oh boy, well, she was only prime minister for a month.
She got beaten by a head of lettuce. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, it was that cabbage had it. But yeah, it was not close. Cruz of Al and Alma asks, for Arif's brighter side corner, could you please give a reason that Vikings fandom could be argued as not a self-destructive behavior?
Okay, so first of all, I just have to ask. So Cruz with Al and Alma have like asked several questions in a row now, which I love and appreciate. But like, are you like Cruz influencers? And you're using a shared account to ask us Vikings questions? I don't have a problem with that. But if you are, that is funny to me. Like that is like, I think that's great. Also it reminds me of Bright Sun Travels, which I think is also a cruise ship influencer channel. Doesn't matter. So it's just, if you're listening, let me know. If not, and you're just like, this is just like a personal, like you register for an Instagram account to share your cruising. I don't like that. Going on cruises. You
spend too much time in the UK.
Going on cruises. I changed it. Going on cruises with like friends and family, and you just like, that's the name that you chose. That's fine too. Or it could be the other. Let's not eliminate that possibility. Yeah, so Vikings fandom, not self-destructive behavior. Okay, so there's like a couple of ways to do it. One, obviously it's character building, right? We just talked about that, where suffering produces good art, where adversity creates character, and it allows you to understand that adversity in some elements of your life can allow you to be resilient in other elements of your life. So that's like one thing, right? Two, James, I see you're about to delete a question about a good take I had. Two, I think that another way this could be the case is it doesn't matter, right? Like it is like sports, and I don't want to say that like sports doesn't have significance in terms of like the way we emotionally invest in them, or that there isn't like a community building aspect to being part of a sports fandom. There's like a lot of reasons that people are big fans of sports, right? And that's fine, but it doesn't matter ultimately. And so you can take kind of the emotional training of like this and put it aside, right? Like you can just be like, well, this is like an element of my life that ultimately doesn't affect like whether or not I get a job. So it's not that important. And so you can just kind of ride the highs and cruise past, as it were, the lows, and be a fair weather fan. Like in that sense, it's not self-destructive behavior. But I think for the most part it is. I think you have to kind of tie yourself in knots to make it not that.
For the record, I was not going to do that one. I'd gotten the wrong one.
I saw what you eventually did, but you highlighted it initially, and I was like, "Hey!"
No. I would never do that to the talent. Let's go to God, Lavar Bolsharif, who asks for Arif's Wentz admiration consolidation corner. Your, hey man, just start Wentz this year take is probably your best take you've ever had. Everyone thought the JJ Falcons game was a blip, and you were the only one on the Wentz ride. You even talked to him in person about it. God. You owned Luke Braun on this take and have triumphed. My question is, have you realized this? Do you acknowledge this? Do you want to acknowledge this?
Clearly I do, because I forced James to put that question back in if he was going to delete it. I only read the first sentence of this question when I was like, James, don't delete that. And I realized that this ended up dunking on me. And that's, in the same way that everybody was asking for Max Brosmer to start, I got what I wished for, and I'm not really that happy with it. But so takesmanship is a complicated craft, as it were. As an artisan of this particular craft, I would say that one of the things you realize after over a decade of takesmanship, crafting takes, refining them, aging them, fermenting them, putting them on display, framing them appropriately, those kinds of things. You realize that sometimes if you've got enough of them out there, which I think any good takesman is going to have a number of them out there, because you can't live on like 3 good takes and that's it, right? You're going to have ones that like run into each other, that there's going to be tension between them. They might even end up conflicting down the road. Like, you don't want to have takes that at the beginning contradict each other. Of course, that's bad takesmanship. You got to have an understanding of what the landscape of your takes are. But eventually, as time passes, things change. Your takes have to adopt new forms. They turn strange corners, right? Those kinds of things. They'll end up at crossroads, right? And because of that, you'll have to make a choice about which take is going to kind of produce the best or the most aesthetic take outcome, as it were. And my hatred for Luke Braun runs deep, right? It's deep and nuanced and brings me such joy, this hatred. The hate I have for Wentz, it's significant, but it's not as personal, right? It's part of a broader bit that emerged from the NDSU stuff, and it has emerged here, and it peaked essentially in 2019. And so it needed kind of new life. It needed to do basically a heel face turn, right? And so the Wentz take had to evolve. It was a pretty rocky transition in order to own Luke Braun. And for that, I appreciate the way that it has gone. And I appreciate the way that it is kind of allowed me to talk about this craft, but B, kind of realize in a more real sense the way that takesmanship has to go. So I'm really glad that I was able to take Wentz clearly better than all these other quarterbacks, which is unfortunate, take and just bash Luke Braun over the head with it. That's been good. And ultimately, like, it's nice to have a weapon to beat Luke Braun with. It is a painful weapon to wield in this circumstance. Much like if you're not used to wielding a whip, it'll sting your hands. But, it got the job done, and ultimately you have to be thankful for that.
Next question is from Damien, who asks, for Arif, so you're saying there's a chance. Given the broadcast was still claiming the Vikings were in the hunt at the end of the game, what equally implausible situations could you also deem possible? Again,
the Vikings went out and the Packers lose out. The Vikings are almost certainly, not guaranteed, but almost certainly in the playoffs. The likelihood of that is less than 1%. Just want to make that clear.
This is also a team that hasn't scored a touchdown in 6 points, in six quarters.
Yeah, and the Packers are going to play the Titans. Like, that is on their schedule. It is a real tough needle to thread. So equally implausible situations that I could deem possible. I could become Pope, right?
There was a Chicago Pope.
Yeah, right.
Why can't a non-Catholic become Pope?
Yeah, like a White Sox fan became a Pope. Why not a non-Catholic?
Damn. We're starting a drive here, a petition, a movement, a reef for Pope. Hafnium asks, if you were made the NFC North dictator and could reassign the starting quarterbacks to different teams within the NFC North, which team would you put at quarterback in order to maximize the Vikings' chances of making the playoffs this year? Same question, but for the long-term success of the Vikings.
Half the them has like submitted this question like 4 times, and I really genuinely appreciate the commitment it takes to keep submitting the question, which I do want to point out, half the them, this has almost made the cut several times, and just it's only because I ramble and take forever to answer questions that it hasn't been answered earlier. James has just had to cut it sometimes. So just shouts to you to keep asking this question. Fantastic work. Second, this one is tough. So I think the long-term success of the Vikings, you probably just want to go with Caleb Williams, right? He's been playing pretty well over the past 6 games. Is that enough for us to say that he's going to become a good quarterback? No, but I don't believe in Jordan Love. Obviously, that's one of the takes, right? And Jared Goff is old, so long-term success, that'd be tough. But in terms of maximizing the Vikings' chances of making the playoffs this year, I would put Jared Goff on the Vikings. I think that one's pretty easy. And then I think the Packers' defense is like way too good. So Jordan Love, who is probably the second best quarterback of this group, which I hate, I would say should probably go. I know that the Bears are like winning the division right now, but it is a very fraudulent set of wins, and the Lions are reverse fraudulent right now. They're losing games that they shouldn't be losing, and I think from a quality perspective, they are a better team. And so it's tough for me to decide between the two, between the Bears and the Lions, who's going to get the second best quarterback to maximize the Vikings' chances of making the playoffs. But I would say probably Jordan Love on. It's tough. No, the Lions' injuries are a lot. I'm going to go Jordan Love on the Lions, and that leaves Caleb Williams on the Bears. So short term, Vikings get Jared Goff. No, it doesn't. No. JJ McCarthy goes on to the Packers. Yeah, that leaves Caleb Williams to the Bears. Yeah. In the long term, Jared Goff Jared Goff is probably on the Packers, so that their timeline is really short. The Vikings get Caleb Williams. The Lions get JJ McCarthy. And the Bears get Jordan Love, I guess, because I just don't trust the long-term capability of that organization. So that's probably the way to give the long-term success for the Vikings, but short-term, the Vikings get Jared Goff.
The Village Yakmonger asks, is this the worst season Norse Code has covered, both in quality of losses and in terms of outlook going forward? The outlook part is interesting, but I think we both agree that the first season of Norse Code was the worst, both in quality of show and the product on the field.
Yeah. That was 2013, right?
2013.
Yeah, that was real bad.
And before the show, we even pulled up the roster. Like, who was on that roster? There were a bunch of great names that were at the very end of their career. It's unfortunate. We did have Jared Allen on that one, though. But we're going to go off the rails here. Room Temp asks, for a Reef's child rearing corner, Saturday, me and the buds went out bowling. There was a kid running across the lanes multiple times to talk to another kid. Knowing how you can get the people to clap at a theater, taking care of an annoying kid, what would you have done to get the bowling alley to clap for us?
I don't condone injuring children. Or I just want to make this clear, employing them as child labor. I just want to, like, that has to be out there.
It does have to be out there each time a child questions.
Yeah. This super just feels like a bowling alley employee problem, right? Like, I just feel like you just like walk up to one of the employees and be like, hey, one of your jobs is to enforce like lane behavior, and I just think it's unsafe for the kid. Frame it as a child safety question and not the ruining my game question. I think it's unsafe for the kid, and was I assume not running on the actual like lanes themselves, but like running in the path of the bowlers who are about to bowl, right? Because on the lanes,
that's how I read that.
Yeah, because on the lanes, like like the employees would stop that already. But like it's unsafe because I mean, like a bowler could run into a kid. Oh no, it's pretty bad. It also like obviously it like violates a ton of etiquette, obviously. But you say like in terms of like, hey, I need you to be able to talk to the parents to prevent this from happening. I'm so concerned about the safety of these kids, and then you don't have to do anything, violent or otherwise, to stop this. Otherwise, like if you did want to do it, I don't think that this is going to result in anyone clapping. But you could just like bowl like normal and just like run into a kid. Like you're gonna win that one, right? Like that's
one would hope anyway.
Yeah, if you're not, then don't. What are you doing? This quarter is not for you if you're not gonna win that battle. Like you're in a semi truck and you're going up against a Volkswagen Bug. Like, come on.
I was half expecting you to say, all right, you talk to the employee, and when they don't do anything because they're not paid enough to care, grab the stuff they use to just, like disinfect the shoes and just spray them with that, and just make them go away that way.
Okay,
for whatever reason,
that's the way your brain works for sure, and it's certainly not something I would ever do.
It's late, and I just figured that that's the sort of thing that you would say were it to not come out of your lips. Let's end with my 5-year-old plans to replace me. Asks a question for Arif's gift giving corner. It's Christmas time, and once again, I am stuck, unable to find a good present for my wife. 3 years ago, I listened to your suggestions and gave my 36-week pregnant wife a Peloton bike. She was mad. 2 years ago, I gave her another Peloton bike, once again, based upon your advice. Last year, after she gave me an ultimatum of no Pelotons, I didn't give her anything. This also upset her. She is bemused by the Norse Code Discord, the community it has created, and appreciates you siding with her about Drew Barrymore and Ever After. So which Norse Code merchandise would you recommend I gift her with the $150 spending limit? That is...
incredible lore drop in the middle of this question, first of all. Second, I want to make it clear I never recommended a Peloton bike. If I remember correctly.
No, you remember you didn't recommend one, you recommended two. Yeah.
No, that's not what happened. As always, the way I discuss topics is intentionally misconstrued by the listeners to mean the opposite of what I say. If I recall correctly, I was making fun of the ads where people were gifting Peloton bikes because in the ad for Peloton, the recipient of the bike seemed pretty upset with the gift, which seems like a pretty bad advertisement to run. So I never thought that was a good idea. Don't put that on me.
Still kind of want to, but sure.
Two, I can't imagine we'd recommend anything but the shower curtain, right?
I mean, the shower curtain is obviously a great choice. Also a great choice, you could go with the, I believe the 10-year anniversary one. By the way, the Norse Code, it's cheaper at the moment. It's $59.95 instead of $82.
Wow, we do Black Friday? Is that what I'm hearing?
Apparently, they're doing a Cyber Monday sale. I wasn't originally trying to plug it, but here we are. I was gonna say you can get Norse Code, like the logo, in the in a jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, that's fun.
So that's a thing. I'm just going through what the hell did I check the box for at this point? Oh, that's lovely. You can get a nice little pencil bag. You can get a little zip pouch.
Oh, there's a tapestry?
Yep, there's all sorts of there's a duvet cover. Just go the full bathroom. Get the bath mat,
framed
the
fine
curtain.
art prints. The toupees are so good. What in the world?
When this show finally ends, it will end because somebody bought the duvet cover. and not the Norse Code logo one, the Arif one. The idea, that's $154.95. Maybe if you that's for the king size.
That's for the king size. Yeah.
You get the queen
or the twin.
$133. Yeah, you're still within range. So
and then any leftover money should be used to find a signed copy of Ever After.
And with that revelation, that is going to be the end of this episode of Norse Code. Hope you have enjoyed it. Arif, what do you have to plug?
I think I convinced Luke Braun to write something, which is extremely funny because I texted him an idea 2 weeks ago, and he's like, I would never do that. I'm never writing again. And it just infected his brain, which is awesome. I tortured him, and out of that, it may produce an article. So we'll see if that's this week or next week, or if ever, I guess. And I've got Matt Freese writing about Dallas Turner, I think, coming up soon. And then based off of the research I did for one question at the top of the mailbag, I might also produce an article. Plus, I've got my recap of the Seahawks game, which I know most people don't want to read, but it is a bunch of charts that demonstrate how bad things are, which to me sounds like fun. So you should check that out.
Well, that's it for this episode of Norse Code. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. For Arif, my name is James. Thank you guys so much for listening. And please remember that you never want to go double Ngakwe. And we'll be back later this week.
Norse Code is the largest and only division of Norse Code LLC. You can find Norse Code on the Daily Norseman, SB Nation's Vikings blog at dailynorseman.com. You can also find it on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and wherever fine podcasts are aggregated. Our Vikings blogger extraordinaire and generally useful human is Arif Hassan of... and he can be found on Twitter at Arif Hassan NFL. I am your producer and host, and my name is James Pagashnik. You can find me at the show's official Twitter feed at NorseCodeDN or at my personal account at Big Mono. If you'd like to donate a few bucks to the show, you can do so in a couple of different ways. You can go to patreon.com/NorseCode and donate there. For $3.50 a month, you get bonus material and more. You can also go to paypal.me/NorseCode for a one-time donation, or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com and pick up some Norse Code merch. Any questions or comments that cannot fit in a tweet can be sent to norsecodepodcast@gmail.com. On behalf of the Norse Code staff, we thank you so much for listening.
Our formula is this.
All things are possible through the power of Ben DiNucci.